political side for the UK, and we've kind of split it into kind of what we do, and then the kind of risks and downsides to each of like the elements that the UK is doing. So economically, the UK is very wealthy. So we're a financial leader in renewable energy. 26% of the UK's energy is renewable, and they're leading the kind of innovation and investment across the world to kind of improve the infrastructures, not just in the UK, but like around the world to kind of develop the technologies needed for renewable energy. But this has also led to like some problems.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when you're very wealthy? You start finding ways to equate your damage with money. Okay, so we tend to pay a lot of sustainability damage with money, and that creates something called greenwashing. And whenever happens greenwashing is because you have a very wealthy state, which you claim that you're able to do it. Another risk is the affordability. Currently in the UK, the price for electricity increased for around £3,000 per household per year. £3,000 per household per year. It used to be around £600 per household per year. Now it's 3,000. There are several things that happened. Some of them, maybe some claim they're Russia's, some say that just the price needs to be increased, some say electricity was just too cheap. But affordability, the concept that people are able to pay for their electricity, it's a risk as well.
Do you guys know what greenwashing is?
No. Raise your hands.
No? Okay, so
greenwashing, yes.
Greenwashing, do you understand?
Yes.
Greenwashing? Okay.
Yeah, for the people who don't know, it's so if you're a very rich company, for example, you're a flight company, and this is one of the common ones because you will book flights to come here, they have to reach a quota to say that they're being green and sustainable. So like you said, you're very wealthy, you have a lot of money. So instead of making the change that you need to do in your company, come on, flights, like it's impossible for it to be like green unless or electrically powered. They offload this so that they'll pay maybe a farmer to not cut down a tree, or they will plant a tree, so they try to balance what they are doing with something else. But there's a problem in this because sometimes the money is paid, but nothing is actually done on the other side. But the company looks good and they win, but the actual progress towards the green kind of efforts is different. So that's why they say greenwashing, like you wash your money to be green, but if it actually happens or not, there's a lot of political issue on that.
Another example, just to say a different industry, because we are all in a building that's made out of cement. There's a very big company called Cemex. I think after Lafarge, they're one of the biggest producers of cement. And cement is the most carbon intensive product on the planet, for the manufacturing and so on. But they rebranded themselves as sustainable green cement. It's just a branding, but it's trying to send a signal to the world that they are trying to make the entire cement industry green. But when you actually calculate the footprint from manufacturing, drilling the limestone from forests around the world where indigenous people's land are being grabbed, where forests are being decimated, when it actually comes to Europe to build our homes, they paint a green picture to make it sustainable when it's not really green, because the emissions or the destruction is being done in other countries that we as consumers of that cement don't see it. But they call it sustainable cement, but that kind of branding, that's another case of greenwashing for cement that we use in construction, which is the most carbon intensive product on the planet, as we use for building everywhere. Yeah. So there's no such thing as green cement.
Well, there is, but it's a different type of green cement.
Yeah.
It's like trying to make it more ecological, so you get, just on a side note, because it's very interesting and we're interested in green stuff, Spain actually launched cement which is porous for moss. I did an entire study on moss, so if anyone's interested to talk to me about it. I was literally going through parks and finding moss, it got that bad. But yeah, that's really bad. And moss clears a lot of the toxins in the air, so they've created cement. So instead of us having this grey kind of wall, it allows like fungi and like biodiversity to kind of be built into the wall, so it allows it to grow, which is one solution to kind of make cement greener for the environment, especially in cities and urban development. So it can be green, but that's a different part of cement.
I didn't understand that word. Moss?
Moss. So it's like
The thing that grows in when it becomes
so you
damp.
know so you know
Moss.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if you want to know more about moss, come see me. I can tell you lots about it. On the political side, we have quite a lot of developments in the UK. So government led energy caps, which basically means we talked about how the price of the electricity is going up. The government tried to help the UK citizens to say it's going to be one consistent price, but a problem with this is like living wages go up and down, so like having one price doesn't always mean a good thing. Like sometimes the change, the competition is a good thing to make sure the price stays fair.
Had a discussion about carbon and carbon taxes.
Mhm.
I think we are, if you're not familiar with what a carbon tax is, basically you put a tax into the amount of CO2 that something has emitted. For example, this iPhone is £1,000 and the tax of this, it's the equivalent of CO2 money of it. Let's say it's 100 extra pounds as a tax. And we've had several types of carbon taxes in the UK, but what we were having a discussion is how much is good to have a carbon tax, because it's going to be, this iPhone now is going to be maybe £2,000 because of the environmental footprint. And the solution from a political perspective is, what is the financial way to make people more aware of the environmental footprint of things, and how much is too much if you're going to have a tax?
And just some like easy examples, we obviously have the political decisions to kind of make laws. So like two really big ones, which you can see I think across Europe as well, is reusing your shopping bags. Like it's no longer free, it's like banned in the UK. And cigarette butts, which are very bad and like I forgot my English. They're toxic. Now they have police patrols, so if you throw your cigarette butt on the floor, you're charged £100, and it's actually very aggressive. So we're living in Birmingham, and I know at least 4 friends who've been fined because they thought it was the middle of the night, they're standing and they throw their cigarette butt, but they have cameras and like police patrols. So if they see you throw your cigarette on the floor, you're being charged to kind of discourage. Because if this cigarette butt goes into the drains, we have like drains obviously in like the pavement. So if water washes it in, it goes into the water system, which is obviously very bad because we all know cigarettes have like toxins. So
I think the last one was, if you haven't been to the UK or England, it's very pretty. Okay, so well, compared to other medieval countries, they tend to look like they were intended to look. So their windows are 8th century, 13th century, 18th century or so. How can you be efficient where you have to try to keep that type of architecture? Imagine living in a house where you cannot renovate because you have to follow the structure of the ambiance of the town, and you're freezing because the windows are like old school windows and you cannot have new ones. So that's a political risk that we have found. You want to look good, but how can you, if you want to look good, how can you be sustainably good into it? And that's definitely one of the risks that have been widely discussed. We are, or at least the UK is a country where we talk about energy poverty, where people actually don't have enough access to heating. And winter is real in the UK, right? So imagine that you can't have new windows because the council doesn't allow you to have new windows. You can't have new insulation because it's really expensive and the quotes are going to the roof. You need to live in your house because you like your town, and it's England, so it's fine, but you're cold and it's expensive. So that's one of the risks that we were exploring. And a lot of things to do there in terms of energy efficiency for domestic households.
There was one more thing. So like, the UK government is like split between two parties, and there's one party. I mean, all of you know Boris Johnson, the guy with the yeah. So that party are really interested in fracking. They love like drilling things in places where they shouldn't be drilled. No, they just I like collect gas from that action basically. So that has caused earthquakes, and I unfortunately have been in 2 earthquakes.
No way.
Yeah, I know. In London, when I was in school, everything was shaking. Yeah. No, I mean when I say earthquakes, it's nothing compared to what goes on around the world. Like it's just a little bit of shaking, a little bit. Yeah. And I've been in the earthquake in Birmingham, but like the earthquakes are happening because of fracking, because that motion of drilling in where you don't need to drill is causing the tectonic plates to move. And yeah, as a result, earthquakes.
Another one thing about the political commitment of the UK, you know about the COP26 that was held in Glasgow last year? Raise your hand. Yeah, cool. So these COPs are where young people like yourselves from different countries can also pressurize young ministers, because they all go there to make blah 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 from Greta, right? Political commitments. So you can actually represent your delegations and come on behalf of the youth of your countries and pressurize these guys who sit there, representing the voice of your country to commit. So, how many of you know the Paris Agreement in 2015? So in Paris, they committed $100 billion for climate change mitigation and adaptation for poor countries. Okay, the rich countries have committed $100 billion of a pot of money for green projects, like to be implemented by young people, entrepreneurs, and so on, for poorer countries that are suffering. None of that has actually materialized. So the COP in Glasgow was going to push countries to do that. So the UK government politically has because they hosted the COP26 in Glasgow, before they hand over to Egypt this year, that will host this in November, they have to push their political agenda to show that the UK has spearheaded the climate implementation of Article 6 and so on and so forth. So this is a chance for the youth to actually hold their governments accountable for the promises they made on UK soil in Glasgow before the next COP. Because you can read, you can do your research, go to the UN COP26 and you can see. And as informed young citizens, you can pressurize, and this is one group that you can put pressure into the commitment. I know demonstration outside is good, but also in the negotiation process, each of you can give inputs through the Spanish delegation, the Turkish delegation, the Maltese delegation, the Italian delegation, but you can do Peruvian delegation, to create jobs that incentivize young people to do green projects in their countries. This $100 billion has been committed, which is meant to create green jobs, financing, real money, not just talk, Yeah. That can finance projects around the world. Thank you.